What is going on, everybody? And welcome to Good News on Good View. I'm here so excited with a very good friend of mine, brother of mine, Madison Downs. This episode is gonna be phenomenal. You might remember Madison Downs from the meet and greet, but also as you ran for Congress. I want to say, was it 2020? 2020?
2020.
2020 ran for Congress. That was quite an adventure. But at the meet and greet, you announced that it's been pressed upon your heart to launch a school that is going to be run by 100% clergy. Mm-hmm. And you yourself are clergy. And historically, you are the first Hebrew to be enlisted as a chaplain in the military. Is that correct?
Correct, yes. First Hebrew chaplain in the United States military, period.
Yeah, that's phenomenal. Now, when you were running for Congress, I remember that being something that came up with like a debate about it, and even when the paperwork was presented, there was a whole situation there. But I just thought it was kind of interesting that people had a hard time accepting that. Why do you think that was?
Well, I think a large part of it is, people have a hard time really recognizing what history actually is. I think that America is in a conundrum right now where we are experiencing what I like to call a schizophrenic Stockholm personality.
That is the perfect way to put it.
Right.
It's so interesting because like the more lies that we find out that they lied to us about in history, right. We run back to them and say, well, now tell us the truth. Right. And it's like, at this point, it's probably something you're going to have to find out for yourself. Like finding out that there were black people here in America already. Right. That was, finding out there were pretty much black people everywhere before that. That's some of the stuff that history doesn't share, which is one of the reasons why I'm happy to announce to everybody that we are going to be releasing the Black History Channel. It's called, we're working on the name, but we are releasing the Black History Channel on Good View, where we actually get to change the narrative of the black community, which is one of the things that you're doing right now with this school that you're opening at St. Paul's.
Right, yeah. So the school is called Madison Xavier. And as you know, when we were running for Congress, a lot of what we talked about was we needed a good separation between church and state. Because what the state is doing right now is causing detrimental harm to not only our citizens, but primarily in my field, to our children.
Yeah, I did bring that up. I want to bring that up. Yeah. That he's also a teacher. So right. not only a chaplain, and just to be correct, you actually joined two different military forces. Correct.
Started out in the Marine Corps, ended up a chaplain in the Army.
In the Army, and now he's also a teacher. So, and what college did you graduate from?
I graduated Mount Santa Ana with 2 degrees there from Carson Newman, from Howard University, and also ISR, was Institution for Scriptural Research.
So you're a little qualified.
A little bit.
a little qualified.
A little bit.
Yeah. And and the reason why I'm bringing this point up is because when you talk about the nation being in a conundrum, the only thing that's going to fix that is genuine leadership, not just political leadership, not just intellectual leadership, but divine leadership, spiritual leadership. And you definitely fit the mold for all of that, understanding, the importance of correcting and not being able to be afraid of what change looks like and the pushback that comes with correction. Because some people want to defend their ignorance. You used to be Democratic and then you became Republican, but now you've even evolved from that to this place of just correcting the whole system. What was it that brought you from being Democrat to Republican to like that whole process?
Well, I still qualify myself or classify myself as being a Republican, but I think that what's happening, what we're seeing in politics, we can't fix the problem. Mm-hmm. Politics, a politician cannot fix the problem. Now, you can have a person who is led by the Spirit of our Father, Yahuwah, who can work as a politician in the position of a politician in order to create bills that will be able to help the people out. But, just from the mindset of being a politician, it's not going to work. Mm-hmm. We've seen nothing but destruction happen at the hands of politicians. I can't think of many politicians that have done much good for any of the American people.
Right. It's so interesting you say it, because most of the historic movements in American history came directly from the people, and then
from the church.
Yeah, and then usually it's like when the politicians got involved is when the movement died out or dissolved or became about something else. Right. That's a solid point. I never thought about it like that. That's a solid point. Now the school, you've been teaching for how long now?
I first started teaching, man. I think I started back in '99.
Gotcha.
So on and off.
Yeah. And your brother was also in the military. And that's where the name Madison Xavier. Brother was also in the military, then a police officer, and then a principal. We know that there was some drama last year that your brother went through, and it's interesting with your family. It seems like you've always been the family that was challenging the system. Mm-hmm. And I love that you guys don't back down. That's that military stuff right there, folks. This is my brother right here. That's that good stuff. We don't back down. And you guys are going to be seeing more of Madison, and we're going to be having some great conversations as far as, our Second Amendment rights, the wanting to take guns away and things like that. But particularly about the school situation, the fact that you understand the mindset, mainly because go ahead.
You mentioned the Second Amendment, so that's what I love. And when we ran for Congress, we talked about it was all Constitution.
Right.
We were upset at the fact that Virginia was taking advantage of citizens by exacting codes and statutes. So the school is actually set up in such a manner that we will be operating under what is known as ecclesiastical law. We're talking about what the Constitutional was designed for. What's happened primarily, if we look at education, for example, what's happened is corporations have completely ransacked the education system. Even if you look at it from, I'm going to just kind of compartmentalize here just a little bit. Yeah. Okay. So if you're looking at, for example, the Black community, back in the day, we had segregated schools, right? And that was okay because it was the law of the land, but then that was challenged. Brown versus the Board of Education, Topeka, all that stuff. So then they integrated schools. We had people who were being integrated, they were spat upon, disenfranchised, other ways physically, so on and so forth. But you had integration. But what did the system do? The system came in and they really did not teach a certain subgroup, the group that was being integrated, in the same manner that it did the group that was already there, right? So then what you had was teachers themselves who wanted to be able to teach in the integrated school systems. There was a disparity in hiring practices, and so that was challenged constitutionally, right? And so then we were allowed to have Black teachers, for example, teach in these integrated schools. Okay. And what do we have now? We have integrated schools. And what has the system done? The system has come in and they've said, okay, we're going to allow you to teach, but we're going to prevent you from teaching the things that would be truly edifying to the students.
Right.
So what we're going to do is, if you're teaching this child the right way, if you're teaching them that there are two genders.
Yeah.
Okay. Then we're going to sue you as a teacher. We're going to put you on administrative leave, and then we're going to fire you. If you're teaching that it's not appropriate to wear a mask in school or a hood, if you challenge that as a teacher, and primarily the people who are doing these are little Black kids. So we're going to sue you. We're going to put you on administrative leave, write you a letter of reprimand, and if you do it again, we're going to fire you. So this oppression has continued. And see, but the thing about it, and I start out with the Black people grouping first, because we're quick to say, oh, well, that's only black people and that's only, they're victims. No, in actuality, they're overcomers. But what you fail to see is what happened to them is now happening to you. Mm-hmm. It's happening to your children.
Everyone thought it was going to stop here, but no, it bleeds. Corruption, right. Corruption is like mold; it grows. It doesn't, right. And anyone that accepts it becomes corrupted. You know what I mean? Like, so that's the whole thing is that, so let's be real. Even Eminem said in one of his songs, like, oh, now is the issue that you're seeing. Now you're scared of hip hop that you're seeing a white person going through. It's like, oh yeah, and unfortunately, you think it's something that was like, well, we're wealthy, so we're protected from that. No, like, this is the system itself.
The system is flawed.
The system is flawed. It has a virus.
The system is flawed because the politicians have ruined it. And so, for a protected class or a class of citizenry that feel as though they are protected, the one thing that, there's one saying or cliche or clause that always comes to mind, and it says, don't sin for whom the bell tolls, for the bell tolls for thee. Mm. So what that means is that you're thinking that all these things are happening to other people. But these same atrocities are now knocking at your door.
Yeah.
And what are you going to do about it?
And we know that the shooting that just took place, and I try to tell in DC, the shooting that just took place in DC, and you hear people, oh, that's religious stuff, and it's like, no. This is stuff that if we, one situation, the opening of the borders, mm-hmm. all this other stuff, is like when we allow the corruption that's even going on internationally to come here. Mm-hmm. There was a reason why protecting our borders. There's a reason why protecting our children from, being corrupted with the whole transgender thing and all that other stuff. Mm-hmm. There's a reason. It's because nations have fallen from not applying the right principles, and we've seen these great nations turn into nothing, mm-hmm. Because they didn't go to the right principles. And when I say the right principles, I am talking about the principles of God. And so this,
right. And you see it. You see where certain leaders, for example, our president right now, he's actually leaning on faith. He's leaning on clergy in order to try to find his way, navigate these troubled waters.
Right.
But the issue is that, here's one of the issues that is really befuddling to me. It is how we continue to elect the killers and not the healers.
Right.
And what we're having and what we're witnessing.
That's a good point.
Right. So what we're witnessing are people who are placed in a position because they've won a popularity contest. But once they get there, you think that they're there in order to espouse and champion the values that you thought that you sent them there to do. But when in fact they get there, all they're doing is saying, hey, I'm going to say the thing that sounds good to my colleagues because I want to secure this life of luxury for myself and forget about everyone else.
Yeah. That's the toxicity of comfort that happens, because we've seen, and I think when that trade-off happens, that we've seen the church kind of do that once once churches get established or they got the building, it becomes about the building instead of the community.
Right.
And so we've seen the same type of that political influence that shut down is the same way that we've seen churches kind of not be effective.
Right.
Because my question is always, like, where did the intensity of making cultural change die out during the civil rights movement? It's like as soon as Martin Luther King and Malcolm X were taken out, it was like the synergy died. Mm-hmm. It's like they hit the people in such a vulnerable place that the people just didn't have the heart to come back out. You had the Tulsa situation, the Daily. So it's a history of the government getting involved and being oppressive while saying they're not oppressing.
A large part of that is due to education. I think that even when we raise up leaders, there's an antiquated way in which we do it. And if it's not antiquated, it is a westernized way in which we raise up our leaders, which is really ineffective. It was effective for the people in power who are running roughshod over the common person, whether they're white, black, Asian, or otherwise. But it is not conducive to creating a healthy environment for the average American citizen. And what I mean by that is, take for example, if you're talking about you want a healthy community. In order to have a healthy community, then you have to establish generational wealth, not just for certain families, but for all families. But what's not being taught, and this ties back into the education piece, is how do you acquire or earn generational wealth? Well, most people think, well, generational wealth means that some person got rich, he's got a bunch of money in the bank, and that's that. And so this person was able to invest off of this money. Say, for example, you're an NFL player or something. You know, this guy made $20 million. Now he can take that and invest, and he's able to give that to certain people. That's a completely different type of wealth. Generational wealth means that, okay, your family came up and your grandfather pulled himself by his bootstraps. He earned enough money to go take out a mortgage. Okay, so he paid down on that mortgage. Now the money that he got from his job is his salary. That has nothing to do with his generational work. That's operating money, right? The generational wealth began when he took out the mortgage and bought property. So now he's paying down on that property, right? And he's creating equity in his home. Nowadays, let's just say you go out, right? And you're my son, okay? And I bought a house, for $300K. All right. Now, 10 years later, you know, you might have been 5, 6 when I got the house. 10 years later, now the house is worth $600. I paid it down and I owe maybe $150, right? So now that $150, it's worth $6. So I have $300,000 plus another $150. So that's $450. That's just in equity. That's what I own. That's a bank of money. So now some more time passes. You're grown. You're married. You want to have a wife and you want to have a child. And you come to me and say, Dad, I like this house, but the interest rates are so high. I can't afford it. You know, they want $600,000 for this home, but I can only take out a mortgage for $300. So me as your dad, now I've been able to pay the house off, right? You've gone through college. You've done everything you need to do. All right. And I paid off the house. So now the house is worth $750,000, $800K. All right. Now that's not money that I have in my bank account down at Navy Federal. That's money I have in the account at the place that's holding my mortgage. So you say, okay, I say, son, I'll go in on you on that loan with you. I'm going to borrow $300,000 from my $800. Instead of you paying a $5,000 to $6,000 mortgage, I'm going to allow you to buy that house at $300. You take out the mortgage for $3 because you still need to build your own equity and your own credit. All right. So now, but you only have to pay the $3. So instead of paying $5,000 to $6,000, you're paying anywhere from $2,000 to $2,800 for a mortgage. You're paying that down. Not only do you have that mortgage, remember you still bought the house for $6.
Yeah.
Right? But you paid $3 on that. So now you've got $300,000 in equity. So guess what that means? All right. So now I'm paying, my mortgage is still fine. It's paid off in my house. All I did was I took out a HELOC or something like that.
Yeah.
Right? So that's off to the side. So that's just another bill that I'm paying myself back because I paid it to my son.
Yeah.
Right? So now you're in there, you've got $300,000 you're paying down, and the more you pay down on that mortgage, the more equity you get. So then you are acquiring what is now generational wealth. So now with that money, You got a car that's broke down. But you don't want to have to go and pay $1,000 a month bill given the interest rates today. So then you borrow against the $300. And you go and buy a $50,000 decent car. Now you don't have all the interest rates because you bought it outright. You're just paying against your own HELOC at the lowest interest rate possible. Now that's generational wealth. That's how it works.
But
and you can do that to yourself.
Now here's the thing. These are techniques that wealthy people have been using for years.
Wealthy now, back in the day, it was just common knowledge.
It was just common knowledge, you're right.
But since the Rockefellers took over the education system, what they started doing was restricting these common principles that everyone used to learn. It used to be a system where everyone would learn basic real estate, basic law, how to balance a budget. These were normal things.
Right. And we actually even saw a diminishing of that when it came down to trade schools, and then they diminished that. They even took the concept of trade schools away.
That was the whole point of us running. Was what we wanted to do was we wanted to return common sense back to the average citizen.
Right.
And
it sounds funny, but you're not being funny because it is common. It was at one point common sense. When things become hidden, that now it's no longer common.
And see, it does, like you said, and how. When we ran, it translates over to the trade schools because not only are you able to, in this area, you got the shipyard. Not only are you going to have a decent job working in the shipyard, but you're able to own your own stuff. You're able to accumulate generational wealth. You're able to be that proud mom or dad who is able to provide and hold your head up, as opposed to these big companies and big banks just completely taking advantage of any citizens out there that they don't care. And listen, I know that all of this meshes. We like to say we're not going to get into politics, but you can't be somewhere and not be a part of politics. So I like a lot of what I see our president doing right now. As you know, he endorsed us.
You, yeah.
Well, I say us because
I love it. I love it. He endorsed us.
But there are things that I don't like. I see where Big Corp is able to recoup all kinds of money, but I'm not seeing the type of transference that we need to see so that the average citizen can live. Now, we definitely wouldn't have gotten that with the Democrats, given who they were running and given the fact that they absolutely do not care about the average citizen insofar as accumulating generational wealth, owning their own businesses, things of that nature. It would not have happened with them as they are right now. Having stated that, there's not enough been done by President Trump in order to help our citizens out right now.
Yeah. So with that being said, again, I love the fact that you say right now, and then
yes, he could change it. He could do more. He needs to do more.
Well, and I think that there's a reality where you have a president who's open to finally communicating to city leaders, and I've seen that he's open to ideas, and he's like, hey, instead of being closed off, kind of like the presidencies that we've seen before were more closed off. So even with him endorsing us, right? When he was president last time, it's like, whoa. This guy was really looking for leadership that could respond to the needs of the people. And so I love the fact that he's just saying, hey, I got ideas, but I'm not the only, there's other ideas out there. He's open to that. Right. This is where I look at the church and I think about the scripture that says that in the kingdom, there's no room for cowards. And a lot of people in a lot of churches just feel like, sitting up here Sundays and preaching and everything, that's what Christ meant. When we're supposed to be leaders in justice, we're the ones that were called to deal with the widows and widowers. We're the ones that were called to be a father to the fatherless. Our assignment came with our faith that we were supposed to be. And when you talk about ecclesiastical law, it's just like we were the ones assigned to take care of the community, not the politicians, not the governments, but those who call themselves children of the Most High, children of the Creator, children of the Abrahamic God. You know what I mean? And so, I'm just saying, I see all of this being addressed with the school.
Yeah, because the education center is really the hub of any community. That and your place of worship. And we have to also remember that Yehoshua, he bared the government on his shoulders. Yeah. Right now, everything is flipped upside down. Somehow or another, we've gotten to the point to where the government is bearing all of us on its shoulders, and it's not designed to do that. It's not designed to operate that way. And so what we need to do is we need to reclaim authority. And a part of doing that was, I believe that, the education center, along with the worship center, is the hub of any community. Not only are we able to create citizens that will be able to go out and accumulate generational wealth, be good citizens, pay their taxes, help communities, build healthy counties and cities and states, and then consequently a nation, and heal a nation. Not only will we be able to influence that, but we'll also be able to influence workforce development. We're able to influence healthcare. We're able to, and how do we do that? Well, with a trade piece, we're able to build partnerships with apprenticeship programs and the shipyard and things of that nature, where we're able to, right from school, graduate with a degree or a certificate that enables them to go out and make money. They're able to make money. They're able to buy their own. They're able to earn generational wealth. They're able to earn generational wealth. They're able to provide for their families. They're able to provide for their families, and it goes on and on and on.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting that you say that, and particularly in America, it always started with the education. Mm-hmm. We were a nation, of kind of just opportunity and potential, but the education is what harnesses that opportunity and potential. It harnesses that, and I think one of the things that need to be corrected about the education system, which you are implementing into the school, is, connecting with the uniqueness of the child, and instead of trying to put it more through a processing plant where they were so easily disqualified for not learning a certain way at a certain potential with different environments. I think that's one of the advantages you have of being in the inner cities, and working with young people. You can see that where the needs are different, that cause them to learn at a different pace, and you're creating a healthier environment where they can learn in a uniqueness and to the whole child, and first of all, I want to thank you for taking the time to do that, because you could have been like, hey, me and my family are moving forward. As for me and my house, we're serving the Lord. And you're like, no, we got to build this city. We got to build a community. And I definitely appreciate you for being on the front line with that. We're about out of time, but and we're gonna have you come back on for the next show as well. But I want you guys to understand something. Is there a way that people can get in contact with you if they want to support? Because a lot of people are going to see this and want to be like, how can I get involved? How can I support? How can I help out? Donations, all of that stuff. Like, people are going to want to know that. So how do people get in contact with you to be a part of this?
Sure. You can go to madison.downs76@gmail.com, or you can, and that'll be Madison Xavier, or you can go to dial 202-615-8329.
Yeah, and guys, you got to understand what this is really about. This is about making cultural change. This is about creating generational wealth, and that's who this is all about. From Good View, which Good View is going to be one of the supporters. We love you, man. That's why we had you at the meet and greet. We love the vision, and so we definitely are part of the support system for you in this vision. We want to see it happen. We know that lives are going to be changed. Now is not the time to just talk about making change and talking about how bad society is. Now is the time to get involved and make the change. So we're going to have contact information, his information up there for you guys to get in contact if you want to connect with the school. He's also on Facebook, Instagram, so he's reachable. You know, you can reach out to him. But it's time for real leadership to rise up. Again, there's no room for cowards, and so keep that in mind. But we'll be back next week. You're watching Good News on Good View.